Bienvenidos todos a Grupo Inframundo en esto que se llama Artistas del Inframundo. Welcome everybody to Artistas from the Underworld or Inframundo here in Mexico. We're here with the talented artist Kim.
Hart.
Kim Hart, how are you? Kim Hart, of course. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Great.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to
Thank you
meet
for
you
having
too.
me.
Thank you for having the time to talk to us here with Grupo Inframundo here in Mexico. Well,
It's
I'm
my,
going
it's
to
my
have a couple questions with you if you don't mind. And first question I want to ask you, as an artist, when did this interest in art, obviously, first began with you?
in art or in kind of like horror? You mean in art in
Let's
general?
start with art, then we're going up to horror.
I have I have been an artist for as long as I can remember. Like
Yeah.
um, from sitting around the kitchen table with my father and drawing. I was lucky that I got to go to an art school in South Africa, which is where I'm from
Okay.
originally, when I was
Oh,
like 14. So already then I went to like a kind of like a fame school, art, ballet, drama, and music students.
mhm.
And so I learned a lot of techniques there. We would do art 6 hours a day, you know. So that was like an art high school. And then after that, I went to university and did a fine arts degree in South Africa. So I've been doing it for a very, very long time because I'm old lady.
Okay, nice. Because a lot of kids and a lot of people who start in arts, they start like from 8 to 10 years old, more or less. But you
Yeah.
said you from 14.
Yeah, I was doing it when I was very young, but I did
Okay,
it like officially because I went to
officially.
an art school when I was
Okay.
14.
So we can
So
say
yeah,
that there is no an age limit that to start in art school, to start doing art, because a lot of people said, I have friends who make a lot of kind of arts like sculptures. Some of them make Chucky dolls also. And they
yeah,
all have this like question that do I have to start young? Do I have to start at some certain age? But I don't think so.
no, no, absolutely not. In fact, Van Gogh famously only started doing art when he was about 22. So
Exactly.
it really doesn't matter when you start. It matters like where your heart is, you know.
Yeah, and
And if
there's
you're into it, well, if you're into it, you do it in your spare time. You just do it when you want to do it, you
of
know.
course some people are not even professional, but they're awesome artists.
Yeah, but the longer you do it, the better you get. If you start at
Ah,
20, you start at
yeah,
30, it doesn't matter. It's the longer you do it, the better you get, you know.
it's just
So
practice.
it's just practice, exactly, exactly. And in fact, that whole notion of some people being like born artists, like oh,
Mhm.
talented, I don't put any, I don't put any store in that. To me, it's like it's just practice.
Practice makes the master.
Exactly, totally,
what's
exactly.
what's the hardest part of being an artist nowadays, because there's like a lot of compet in this particular aspect.
Well, it depends what aspect of being an artist you're talking about, because if it's just like making work,
No,
then
let's talk
there's
professionally. Like, there's just a lot of questions about. I have friends that dedicate to art and a lot of stuff, and it's like here, at least in Mexico,
yeah,
competition in art is, professionally talking, really hard to get a
yeah,
job.
yeah,
Really
yeah, yeah.
hard to make like ends meet and all this.
Yeah, well, making ends meet as an artist is very hard. One of the things I've found, because I've lived in a lot of different countries, I lived in South
Mhm.
Africa until I was 20, then I lived in London until I was
Okay.
30, and then I lived in Italy until I was 40, and now I've been in the USA for 10 years. Now I'm 50. Um,
Okay.
and it makes a huge difference where you are. It makes a huge difference because even somewhere where you would think that they appreciate art, like Italy, they
Mhm.
don't actually appreciate contemporary art. They don't appreciate young people's art. They're very conservative culture and they'd sooner spend money on Gucci and boats and stuff like that. It's just the Italian way.
Oh,
The Americans, they appreciate art, but they don't want an unknown artist. For them, buying art is a blue chip affair. And they will,
yeah.
to decorate their houses, they'll just go to IKEA and they'll buy posters and that's what they'll put on their wall. They won't necessarily support new, young, up and coming artists.
Yeah, that's
London,
the
on
hard
the other
thing, I
hand,
think.
yeah, exactly. London, on the other hand, is phenomenal. Like London really support, not only does the city and the people really support young artists, like, you know, you'll go out to what's called an academy show, like the final year of a university show, and people will go and buy those artists' work and hang it in their homes, you know.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of support, but also the culture, the state will actually support you. If you're an artist, you can get a lot of grants are available if you live somewhere like London.
Okay, so your
In the
experience.
USA, that is not true, you know, and even in the US, it depends whereabouts you are. In San Francisco, where I am, it certainly has a reputation for being kind of very progressive, very liberal, very interested, and want to support new young artists. But yeah, not really true, you know.
Okay.
Mainly because it's a very, very capitalist country. It's still not very socialist. So they're not really going to be out there giving money to support artists. They're going to be like, yeah, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. So it's hard no matter where you go. And I think that's kind of the message is you just got to stick to it. You've got to figure out the portals. Now there's so many more ways of getting your work seen through what you guys are doing, podcasts. You now have Etsy, which is more like craft stuff, but it's like it's a fantastic platform. And if you work hard, you have a way. Like back in the day, like in the 90s, if you didn't have a dealer, you would have a very, very hard time showing your work. You could maybe hang some work in a pub or a bar, but nowadays there's a lot of platforms, Instagram, you know, and like I said, Etsy, a lot of sales platforms. But it's hard. I mean, there's no getting around it because you're basically self-employed. So if you're self-employed, it's hard. You know.
So in your experience, it's like depending sometimes, obviously, on the place you are, you know, with your experience, you know, all the places you've lived in, it's like very different from, like you said, London to here in America to South Africa. It's like really different.
Very, very different. And in some places, I dare say it's practically impossible, you know. So I think it really depends where you are. I don't know what it's like in Mexico. I have no idea. I've just visited once for a fabulous holiday, but that's all, you know. But it was notable to me how different it is depending on where you are as to the art market. You know,
it's really interesting, you know, like you said, like with Instagram, Etsy, and a lot of platforms that we have right now, where you can express your art, and a lot of people around the world, like in 20 years later, I don't know how it's going to change, but right now it's like there's a lot of tools to get your art out there.
And of course, that means that there's a lot more noise, so it's harder to find. And
part of the problem with this
for me is like you make work like, I mean, as you know, like I'm a mask maker. I've got one of them here. Oh, I'm making horror masks, right? But I also do this, like I'm a portrait painter, and I want to spend my time doing this. I don't want to spend my time trying to figure out how to do like a reel or a TikTok or what are the latest tools that are available to me to get the content out there every freaking day. You've got to get the content out there, you know?
Yeah, you have to be constant.
Taking away from the time to do your work. So, you know, it's a juggle, it's a struggle. And even like, I mean, I don't do my work full time. I do cleaning and stuff as well to try and make ends meet because it's, you know, it's not easy. You've got to hustle and do what you got to do, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay.
A lot of work, but if you love it, it's, in the end, I think that with passion, with love, and all this, if you really, really love doing what you do, we're talking like here in art or in professional, anything, you know, athletes, whatever you talk about, it's how passionate, how much heart you put into it.
Exactly. And I've always said that I was going to walk the path less traveled. I love doing this. I want to find a way to do it. So I found a way, and it's through having 5 or 6 different jobs and being my own boss, which I love. I can't work for anybody else. I need to be my own boss. And I love that. And so my life is happy. I don't have much money, but my life is happy, you know? I'm doing what I love doing. So I would always say that to everybody, you know, you still hear parents saying to their kids, like, yeah, well, you need to knuckle down and you need to get a proper job. And it's because they care about you and they're worried.
Yeah, of course.
No, the reason they want you to get a proper job is because they want you to be happy. If you already know what makes you happy, you're doing a shortcut, you know. You just got to figure out how to make ends meet. That's all. And as long as you don't want to have like a Lamborghini or like high, you know, a lot of money, you can have a happy life, you know, doing what you love doing. And you'll get better at it. And the longer you're doing it, the better your network will get as well. So the longer you do it, the longer you stick at it, you know, the more chance you've got of actually being able to make a real living at it. Because you'll be meeting the right people and stuff, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Meeting the right people, you know, because it's always like this huge talk now with parents that you have to find the people, you have to start making connections, talking to people who like this, who like that. And it sounds really, when you're a kid, when you're small and you're starting with this, it's like, okay, I have to start getting to know people in this aspect. I have to, he's good, I have to go with him, he's good. It sounds really hard at the beginning, But it's like when you like something and other people like the same, you start making
Yeah.
connections, and it's not like work, it's like friendship, and that friendship gets you high and high and
Exactly.
high.
And honestly, like corporates, I want to say corporate America, but the corporate world
Hmm.
came in with the notion of networking, right? And I was always like, I don't want to do networking. I don't want to have to go out and make connections. I'm an introvert. I'm probably on the spectrum. Like, I don't want to be going out and meeting people. It's not my idea of fun.
Yeah,
But actually, what I'm talking about is just making friends with people who like the stuff that you like.
exactly.
And then you just go and hanging out with them and having a few drinks. It's like, it's actually easy. Like you say, it's not actually this thing that's networking and scary. It's actually just going and hanging out and meeting people who are like-minded. And it's
Yeah,
actually quite nice.
they make it
Yeah.
look like it's hard, it's hard working, and it's just making friends.
It
So
is. And also the other thing is it's not an upward trajectory like
yeah.
this. It goes like that. So I had my work on a BBC TV show in the 90s. And so that was like a high point. And then I kind of moved to Italy and kind of faded down again. And then I had one of my paintings, two of my paintings in the De Young at here in San Francisco a couple of years ago. And so that was another high point. And it kind of comes up and it goes and it comes and goes. It's not in a straight line either. It's just,
It's life.
alive. Exactly. It's just life. You're just hustling, doing what you love, getting through the day.
Exactly. Oh, you showed me some of your masks. I know you work with a lot of masks. We're gonna go up there. But
Oh,
what
yeah.
intrigues you the most of masks? Because there is, I don't know, here in Mexico we have a culture, in Dia de los Muertos and all this stuff. And also in small towns, they make masks with wood and just with one piece. Let me show you one that I have over here.
Interesting. It's like in Africa as well, they make masks out of wood.
This is from a small town here in Mexico,
Oh, cool.
and it's in one piece. And in some
Oh, it
places
looks cool
you find
from the back
this.
as well. That's cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
and my question is, what intrigues you the most about making masks?
It's so interesting because the thing that intrigues me the most is kind of the concept around it, that we are
Okay,
the most free when we are behind a mask.
that's where I was going at.
Exactly. It's like the Venice Biennale. I spent 10 years in Italy, but I lived in Venice. And that's where I really came upon the masks, because we have the carnival every year, Carnevale and Martiri di Grasso, which they call Mardi Gras, or I guess Mardi Gras, or what's the other way? Fat Tuesday. There's all these words for it, but it's basically Mardi Gras is Martiri di Grasso. And it comes from the Venetian tradition. And the thing about Venice is there is a lot of very rich people there. I mean, we're talking Elton John, we're talking Madonna. It's like the richest people in the world. Abramovich used to be there. The richest people in the world would come for the carnival, but you had no idea who they were because they were dressed in these phenomenal outfits with masks on. And so they could wander around and they could just do whatever they wanted and be themselves, and nobody knew who they were. And during carnival time, people have masks on all the time, like day and night. There's parties in every bar, restaurant, you just have your masks on. And that really got me thinking about it, And of course, there's the history of the Divine Comedy in Venice, Dante's Divine Comedy. And Dante's Divine Comedy, they have all these different characters who have these different shaped masks. Like, let me show you this one. Oh, I've actually got it wrapped up here, but I'll just pull it out. So this is called Capitan or Scaramuccia. It's not really like a horror one, but that's like a classic, like Venetian mask, right? There's different shapes like that, and I was just fascinated by them. And then when I left Venice, I thought at that point I came over to the USA, and I was actually training to be a Zen priest, and I needed to do some work like artwork because I'm an artist at heart, but I couldn't do these big projects like that, which take me hours and months to make. So I wanted to do these small projects. And so I spoke to my friends in Italy, in Venice, and I was like, please send me some masks. And that's what really got me interested. And then thinking about, okay, well, what am I going to put on the mask and why, And then that's when I started getting interested in the kind of the horror aspects, because I noticed that there's this whole subculture that's fascinating.
Horror for me, it's
but it's so interesting because I've got a slightly different route, right? Because you can get horror, which is kind of a lot of the stuff you've got there, these classic horror films, and like the clown faces and the dolls and all the things, right? Like these horrific things that we know from films. And then there's this true crime aspect, your serial killers and all that sort of stuff, which is what I'm fascinated by the most. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to make masks more like that. And then I discovered there's always horror fans like that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I wanted to explore the edge of that. So I discovered that I could make them more bloody and more gory. And the more bloody and the more gory I made them, the more people liked them. But weirdly, when it came across as like too real, so a lot of blood, a lot of gore, people love it. And then it came across as too real. I started doing these masks where it looked like the face was bruised. It looked like somebody had been punched and the face was just
Yeah.
bruised. And people didn't like it. It felt like
there's like a limit.
so interesting. It's like literally like if I watch a movie, right? It's like say a Rocky or something, and people are getting beaten up, and you're hearing like you're hearing these big noises and drama. You're like, whoa, and you watch it and you're into it. But I saw a fight once in real life out on the street here, and when somebody punches somebody else in the face full on, you don't hear it. It's very quiet, and that was so much more menacing. So I'm playing with this like this horror around like, okay, lots of blood, lots of gore, interesting and fascinating, and people are into it. And then when I go more subtle, it gets more horrifying somehow. So I'm kind of playing around with that a little bit. But it's I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah, because it's like a lot of people, I have friends that most of them don't like horror movies. And it's like a topic when they talk to me. It's like, oh, you love horror movies. You must be a really violent person. You must be like have this love for blood and guts and all that thing. And it's like, I'm not actually in love with that. I love the movies, but it's different movies from real life. It's like they think that we horror fans love horror, love blood and guts and all this thing. And it's like we love them on film because we know we're secure.
Exactly. And it's fascinating. Yeah. In fact, my husband was saying to me, he said, I don't like you watching all this like crime stuff. You're going to invite it in, And I was like, no, I like watching a lot of the crime stuff because as a woman, I watch it because they always catch the bad guys, They always, the shows that I'm watching, don't show me one where they're like, and the guy is still at large, and he's out still murdering people because I won't watch that one. That's too scary for me, But it's interesting because you talk about blood and gore. So I can see what you've got written on the wall behind you. I see a WERE.
Yeah.
That is like, so interesting to me because one of the things that's been like really hard as an artist is getting the absolute like perfect color of blood,
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to do because most people, a lot of people, because I look at other artists and people who work with like blood, like, imitation blood, and it's way too red. It's like cherry red. They have a notion that blood is red, but it's like, no, when it dries, it goes brown and it's really thick.
Brownish. It's
browns and blacks and to getting all that right, I'm a real stickler for getting that kind of detail right. In fact, when I was talking to Stephen Conetti, who's like a writer director at LLC Hell House LLC, and we were like geeking out about getting just the color of blood like just right, because it takes a while. You got to figure it out, I mean, I've even got
I think it's easy. You just buy the blood, the artificial blood, and it's the same blood everywhere, and it's not.
Exactly. Not if you want to get it right. Not if you want it looking like right.
It seems simple, but it isn't.
And also, just technically, like if I'm working on a mask, like if I'm doing actual paintings on a mask, let me get a better one than this one. It's a bit more horrific. If I'm doing painting on an actual mask, acrylic paint dries darker than what it is on the brush when it's wet. So I've got to know how many shades darker it's going to dry so that when it's dry, it's the right color, you see. So it's got to so you've got areas where it's like thicker and then it's like darker and then, But before I put it on there, it actually looks a lot lighter than that. So it looks like the wrong color. But then you put it on and it dries to the right color. So, it's a whole thing. And then I also like with what I do with mine, for example, is because I want them to look like to really be playing on you being part of the horror scene because you're going to be wearing this, right?
Yeah.
And I'll use my own hands. So I'll actually cover my hands in this blood and then I'll hit it, or like drag my hand on it and stuff. So that's when you can kind of see that.
So it seems more real.
Yeah, and you can literally see my fingerprints in here, So totally, it's like, oh, you can see the fingerprints.
That's really cool. Now that you showed us your mask and let's talk about the next question. How was the approach with the production of Hell House Origins?
Well, they approached me. It was great. Like Stephen reached out to me. So here's the thing. This is where things like Instagram really come into their own, because it's not like he knew my work. He didn't know my work,
No.
but he probably, I think he went and searched masks, horror, blah blah blah. Just did the search of the hashtag, and then saw my stuff, and then saw my work, and then reached out. He sent me a DM, and he was like, "Hey, I love your masks. Would you be interested in making some pieces for us? You know, we're doing a horror film, blah blah blah." So we got on. I was like, "Look, this is too complicated. Let's talk on a Zoom." So we actually chatted on a Zoom, like you and I, and we spoke about what it was that he was looking for. I had to do a few different ones because he explained the concept. And so I actually, when someone explains a concept to me, they're like, I want it to look really bloody, but I want it to look like it's been a car accident and there's like some black and this and that, you know, then I'll make 2 or 3 and I'll say, which ones do you like, you know, and then the other one I'll just sell as the one that they didn't choose, you know. But yeah, no, he reached out. That's where I think that, you know, artists, you just got to be consistent. You build up your work, you get it posted on Instagram, you have an Instagram feed that's got like, you know, 1,000 posts over a few years. So that gives you credibility. But every single time you're posting, you're putting all the appropriate hashtags. You've got to have, you know, you've got to do your research into how to work your hashtags so that there is a consistency, so that somebody who's looking for masks will find you. I sold a mask to a guy called Aaron Rodgers, who people who are into American football, I'm not sure who he was, but he's like the best quarterback in the country, supposedly, you know. And his dress, the guy who dresses him, you know, his stylist, I guess, same thing. He found my work through Instagram. And then once they found my work through Instagram, there's a link to my Etsy and they just go and buy it, you know? So it's about being out there. Half the time, I'm not even networking with these people. You're just making sure that you're doing the background work so that if they come and look for your kind of thing and the things that set you apart as well, you know, the things that, because I'm just not saying masquerade mask. I'll be like masquerade mask, horror mask, scary mask, you know.
Yeah,
like that.
What we talked about, that we have a lot of places where you can show your art and, you know, like what happened to you.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not just showing it. You've got to know the technical background stuff so that if someone's looking for what you're selling, they can find you. And that's actually really important.
Yeah,
so that's where the Hell House peeps, that's where Stephen Cognetti, that's how he found me. That's how Aaron Rodgers, that's how these other people have found me through that. And then they just reach out to me, you know, much like you did.
And we're happy. Yeah. So, well, talking about horror, I have this question with all the people I know. It's my personal question. What's your favorite horror movie? But what's the horror movie that made you fall in love with horror?
Well, I don't watch that many horror movies. I'm interested in stuff that scares me, but I don't watch that many horror movies. I got like one of the first horror books I ever read was Salem's Lot, and it terrified me because the first page, Stephen King talks about this tongue of a person that's just hanged themselves, hanging out with flies all over it, and I was literally scarred for life after reading that. It was terrifying. And I saw a film called, it wasn't Psycho, of course. That, you know, I have to say Psycho is probably my favorite horror film, but that's because this is the interesting thing, right? Ed Gein. Are you familiar with Ed Gein?
Yeah.
So what was so fascinating about Ed Gein is that because he was this ordinary guy next door, he changed the face of horror. He's a horrific serial killer, but he was just an ordinary guy next door. And so in Psycho, he was basically the inspiration for the film because they wanted to show the horror of a person next door being somebody who could like murder people, you know? Up until that point, a lot of horror films had been like It and the gloopy thing that came out of the lake, you know, things that were like out of your imagination. It wasn't the ordinary person next door who looks like you or me who's going to be murdering people. It didn't exist when Psycho came out. So Ed Gein influenced so that Psycho got made. And Psycho I saw when I was very young. I was way too young to watch it when I watched it, and it terrified the bejesus out of me. But I loved it. It's just a total classic, you know. So that's probably my favorite horror film. But that's because I'm old school, you know.
No, it's fine. I'm also old school too. I love all the classics. Psycho 2, I think it's one of the best sequels for me. I love Psycho 2 because it takes to this part of Norman Bates that it's, like you said, it's this horror dude. It's this normal guy, but also, you know, when you're seeing all his background about his mom, about all these things that happens in real life, you know, with real
Yeah.
patients, real people, and it's what scares you the most.
Yeah, totally. And that was when if I just recently reread the biography of Ed Gein and the stuff that he grew up with his mother. I mean, he left his mother's room exactly how it was when she died. So she was like this weird, super dominating and domineering, extremely religious woman who kept him like right under her thumb. And then when she died, he just kind of went to pieces, but left her room absolutely perfect, and then went out digging women's graves up and then getting these women back to his farmhouse and skinning them and doing all sorts of shit, you know. But his mother's room was perfect. She was like a goddess to him, you know. So that's like, it's wild. People are wild.
Yeah.
That's kind of the horror stuff that I find most interesting. It's like the real life horror, you know, the Ed Geins, or I mean, I know it's a cliche, but the Jeffrey Dahmers, you know, I mean, there's people out there now, God knows, we haven't caught them yet. Who knows
Yeah.
what they're up to? And it's
Yeah,
fascinating.
everywhere.
Psychology. Yeah, totally.
Exactly.
And in fact, the more stuff I watch a lot of TV shows, not TV shows, YouTube videos on body language and a lot of true crime, like watching these people getting interviewed. And they seem like really nice people. I would not be able to tell that they were like horrific monsters. So that's the other lesson out there. It's again, it's the subtlety, you know, the mask, who's
the real masks we wear.
Yes, exactly. The real masks we wear and how good some of these people are at wearing them. I mean, I've literally watched videos of Jeffrey Dahmer when he was at a family Christmas with his family with the cat and playing with the cat. He seemed like the loveliest guy, you know what I mean? So, I mean, it wasn't even the butt. He seemed like the loveliest guy, period. And so there's these masks and people are really good at wearing them. So I find it absolutely fascinating.
And it shows on your work with the masks. It's something that fascinates me too, the masks and all, because when I was a kid, I loved to dress up like Ghostface from Scream, for example. For me, I love Chucky, you know, you can see. But when I was a kid, I was afraid of Chucky, you know, I was afraid of the monster. Then I watched Scream when I was young too, like 6, 7 years old. And for me, it was like this different because I was afraid of Chucky, but then with Scream, it's like, oh, I can be the monster too. If I wear this mask, people will be afraid of me and not the other way. So that's why I love the masks.
That's so interesting. In fact, I've said that to my husband once. I was like, I'm really nervous that one day I see somebody has done something horrific because they've been wearing one of my masks, and then they go out and go to somebody.
Let's hope not.
I don't know who made this mask. Because I mean, it's interesting. Exactly. We can become the monster, you know.
Exactly. That's what I love about horror movies and masks.
And I must say, it's been fascinating because I started making the masks and I started getting more and more requests for this kind of like horror stuff. These sort of things, these masks sold so much faster than any other masks I did. I started off, I would sometimes do like really quite pretty ones. In fact, I still get some people say, oh, do pretty ones with like butterflies and shit. And I'm like, I'm not interested in doing that. But when I started off and I didn't know what to do, I was like, oh, I'll do some pretty ones and I'll do a bit of this, I'll do a bit of that. I just wanted to like be creative. And then I noticed that there are these people, because I also thought I'll be making masks for masquerades, for people to go to like a masquerade ball or Halloween. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of my clients are not buying stuff for Halloween. They're musicians, they are artists, they are like performance artists, you know. Yeah. A lot of musicians wearing my masks on stage, which is like fascinating to me. Or for movies, I sold 5 to Warner Brothers for a film. I don't know if it's going to get made. It's called The Party. They did that they bought the masks last year. They bought a bunch of them. Okay. And it's like, yeah, it's just like, find it fascinating.
Yeah,
I thought I'd be selling Halloween masks. I sell them at Halloween time, but yeah, it's other artists who are buying them to do all sorts of interesting shoots and stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it totally is. People are so interesting.
So what's next for Kim Hart? What's your dream project?
I mean, I just love doing what I'm doing, you know, pottering along. My dream project are the projects I'm already doing. So when people say to me, okay, I'm doing this horror film, like, I want to collaborate with you and I want you to make a bunch of masks. That's my dream. I love doing that. I love working one-on-one with people and then just like realizing their stuff. Ideally, I would love to find somebody who could make me a mask slightly bigger than this because I don't make the base mask. I import it from
Okay.
Venice, and
Okay.
it's slightly too small for some faces. I mean, it fits me perfectly, and it fits a ton of it fits most people perfectly. But some people, it's slightly too small, and I can't get it made bigger. So I would love somebody who could make a slightly bigger one than this because it's very strong. So a lot of masks nowadays are made with paper mache. That's a traditional way of making masks, very old school.
Yeah.
But I don't work with those. I work with this, which is much stronger, much harder. And yeah, that would be ideal. Somebody could make me a bigger mask, please, that I could work on.
Please, someone.
Exactly. But yeah, no, I'm just loving it. I just keep doing it. I mean, I'm living the dream basically. It took me a while to get here, but living the dream, making the masks, doing the portraits, hustling, ducking and diving, bobbing and weaving,
Yeah, that's the important thing is that you love it, and
yeah,
having your art done and watching other people get excited when they get your masks. I assume it's going to be, it has to be like really good, really great feeling about it.
Yeah, no, it really is, especially because I have some clients who are like big fans, and they'll ask me to do things specially for them, and I'll do it, and then I get really excited for them to receive it as well, and then they'll do like a video box
I know that feel.
I'm like, oh, I have to like it,
So we have to finish with, what would you give as an advice to upcoming artists who wanna make masks? Like, what's that advice that you would have loved to get when you were beginning with this?
It's hard to say. If I sort of give to somebody who wants to make masks, I guess I would say pay attention to detail and make something that's very high quality, because there's a lot of stuff that's just not that great. There's a lot of masks out there that aren't that great. There's actually very few who have a really high quality attention to detail, whether it's just like, the holes where you put the fabric through, or the finish, how you finish it, or the quality of the paint you use, or I don't have one here, but like I use this very high gloss finish on some of them to give it a really like high end finish. Like that's what I would say. Make something of real quality, because that'll always carry you through. There's a lot of stuff out there that's just not that high quality, and I think that then you're competing against a ton of people who are trying to sell a mask for $20. I was surprised when I first started selling these. I sold them for $70 each, and everybody said to me, "It's ridiculous." I raised the price to $250, sold them just the same. Made no difference. People will pay for something that's beautiful quality, so make something that's beautiful quality.
Well done, something well done. That's
exactly something well done. Exactly. Put the time and the effort, put the money into it. You can get the money back. Like I would be like, oh, but I don't want to spend this much on that high varnish, because it'll cost me like $15 just to varnish this mask. So the difference between $230 and $245 for a mask, to the person who wants that mask, it doesn't matter. You can make up that cost. Just make something that's beautiful.
That's a great advice, and something that a lot of people don't think about it now that you mention it. It's like a lot of people just want to make more and make more and make more, and it's like the more masks I make, the more money I get, but it's not. You have
especially in the long term, and then you're fighting against a lot of competition. If you make something that stand out, and the other thing is to do something that's slightly unique. You've got your own slight edge. It's something that's a little bit different to everybody else, whatever that might be, whether it's the theme or the genre or whatever it might be.
Something that differentiates you from the other.
Yeah, exactly. Try to get something that sort of becomes your signature, as it were.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rodrigo.
A loving time with you talking about masks, something that I love.
It was great speaking to you. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I had a great time.
Thank you again, and gracias a todos por haber escuchado esta entrevista, y pues nos seguimos viendo aquí en Grupo Inframundo. Hasta la vista.
Gracias.